Just hit record on there.
I don't think it's like capturing me though,
It's not?
because usually like when last time there was like a thing up here, like that was like capturing my like video. Actually,
I'm seeing it on mine. It's because I made you the host. And last time I thought I did, but I must have just shared the screen to you.
This is unacceptable. I can't deal with this. Put it in the budget for next time. Oh. How many people do we start off with?
More than this.
More than this? Come on.
We get 21 or 22.
Can we can probably, you guys can figure out how to measure that to the attrition range time, right?
Well, we would use it for survival modeling, actually.
Yeah. R Shiny. Somebody was telling me about R Shiny. Anyone use that?
I just stood up a server today for my team,
Yeah.
mostly statisticians. So
How is it?
Able to deploy Shiny app dashboards too in order network facing. It's cool. There's a Python package that I just saw Hacker use for release that's like really similar.
Yeah.
It's an easy dashboarding thing. It took me, I don't know, probably a couple hours to get from my Python code to it all up in Shiny. I have a little bit of background with R that I never used.
So Shiny is like you build web apps with it, right?
Yeah.
It's a real simple web application.
Okay.
I think it's pretty, it's all very template.
Yeah.
Most of them are 2 files. You got like a UI file and
Yeah.
a server file. And it's all pretty easy stuff.
So I told someone I was teaching this, and they went right to R Studio, or like they said R Studio, and then they said R Shiny. I was like, I don't know what R is. What's this R stuff?
If you're comfortable in R, it's really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But then it's like
running a Shiny service is actually
Do they have like
it's very reliable.
a production site, like a platform as a service or something where you host it?
R Studio will host it.
Oh, will they?
Everybody
Okay.
else that I know that do it,
Yeah.
probably quite expensive too.
I don't have the paid software. I'm just running it on
We have like an
one of those
Yeah. Okay.
non-licensed version. But I haven't run into any problems yet. What do you run into? It's very problems.
I work for an environmental consulting company, and a lot of those things come from Python. So that's what they like to work in. It's good for them.
Are people actually using it to create web apps, or is it just kind of?
We're using it to generate basically a RESTful API on JSON. And then
Yeah.
we have a couple of web apps that pull that data and use it for other things.
Huh.
It's just that we have like processes that have been put together in R. So
Yeah.
Why bother rewriting this? It helps you have servers.
Huh.
Comes it out. So
Yeah.
you can't use it for the UI, but you can also just use it for post
Yeah.
R code just to-
Yeah. Interesting. It seems like not what it's made for, but it seems like from what I've heard, I thought it was made for just like creating UIs really fast, not like an API.
I mean, I guess there are some things, packages people really like in R, or they've got code already written in R. And you
Yeah.
can use it for that purpose.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's just easy. It's easy to know R.
Yeah.
If you're working in R Studio, it's just, you can put it out just as an R Studio. So,
Yeah.
There's still like a Python version in a lot of the science stats world too. Still use very much.
R Studio kind of has like a monopoly on that, like in terms of kind of like Cloudera has a monopoly on what does Cloudera do? What am I thinking? Spark, like in terms of like certification. like kind of like Mongo, like in Mongo University. Doesn't like our studio have like kind of monopoly on that sort of? What's that?
Databricks does a lot of stuff as well.
Oh, do they?
Yeah,
In terms of like certification, though, I
I
thought Cloudera like had like a really like top notch like certification, kind of like Java or Oracle and Java.
What they do, our studio is very good at what it does. So I think almost everybody uses R.
Yeah.
there's not a whole lot. I think a whole lot of people that use R that do it on the
Right. And our studio
Yeah.
also does, they do about everything they can to keep you within our studio. So
Yeah.
that's why they're doing shiny stuff.
Get that vendor lock in. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because they do get charged, yes, but it's safety fees and that sort of thing. So
That's how Mongo probably makes their money too. It's like, how do we get off Mongo and Postgres? Well, we have consultants for that. All right, let's get started. What are we on, day 4?
Sure.
How'd the homework go? Requests?
No request for more homework.
No requests for more homework. This homework was easy, right? All you got to do is import request, pip install requests, and then you have a sane library there. Yeah. So let me show you guys the project that we're working on. This is what we're going to be working on the next couple of days. So this is a buddy of mine had a job interview, and this was basically his interview test. He had to do it in all JavaScript. But basically, it's not updating live, but if I refresh, I mean, it's not like reactive, but if I update this, it should have the updated prices there. Did that update? That's hard to tell. It should be updating. So this is basically pulling, you guys know what cryptocurrencies are, right? Bitcoin. So there are different exchanges for Bitcoin. There's about 50 different exchanges, and the way they work is like on their home like currency. So Kraken, however you pronounce that, is based. Kraken is based in like euros, I believe, and so Bitstamp and Bitrex are based on USD. So the goal here is I buy a bunch of Bitcoins in Ruby, and I pay a lot less, and then I get that money, and then I sell it on one of these other ones where it's really high. So if you take a look at the exchanges, like right now, it's like right around like, these are the buying prices here. You can buy on like one that's like less reliable in rubies in Russia and get it for like $100 cheaper. So if you have $100,000 in each exchange and you're like moving money around, you can start making some funds there, right? So what this thing is doing is connecting to a couple APIs, pulling in the data, doing some crunching, and then outputting the chart here. So this is pretty much what we're going to be building over the next couple of days, or a couple of sessions.
So it highlights the green one there?
Yeah, so it highlights the lowest one. That's the one you want to buy.
So the lowest one is the green one?
Yeah.
On the left, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Bittrex.
So Bittrex is the black one? That's the green line?
No, Bittrex is the green, the lowest 122. 126.
Black.
But the line is black.
Yeah, the line is black.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. It doesn't correspond up there, but yeah, Bittrex is the lowest right now. But you can see historically, it's not always the lowest. Like when I was first running this, Kraken was like always the lowest. I'm like, what's going on here? Then all of a sudden it spiked up. So it's just based on exchange rates as well.
What's the time scale on the bottom? Sorry, I just can't read it.
It's hours.
Oh, so that
Yeah. So this, I'm running a separate service that is basically hitting that API, pulling in the data, and then dumping into my database every hour.
So there's an API for bit currency or whatever.
Yeah, Bitstamp, Kraken, and Bitrex all have public APIs, so you can pull data from it. Okay, so let me actually pull up the so right here, is the actual interview question. All right, so build an app that will find the best exchange rates for Bitcoin, and that's USD to Bitcoin. The actual interview is like you have to be able, it's like not just Bitcoin. It's mostly like the cryptocurrencies you've never heard of. But I'm just gonna like keep it a 1 for simplicity, but it's just USD to Bitcoin, and also it's not just USD in the interview. It's like you have to figure out, based on 5 different currencies, which one is the best. So we're just keeping it simple, just USD to Bitcoin. So build an app that will find the best exchange rates for Bitcoin. That's just USD to Bitcoin from the following cryptocurrency exchanges. Just these 3, not all 50 of them. Show the following pages. Actually, I ended up building it on just 1 page. So you could build it on 2 pages or on 1. So the first page will display the rates and highlight the best one. So that is, oops. How do I make this thing go away? Is it just always going to be there?
It's like one of those, it's always going to be there.
Yeah.
You can move it.
Okay. All right. We'll wait till it goes away and then I'll click. Control up.
I think actually, well, in your case, it'd be Control F then.
Or if you're trying to cycle through tabs, Command Shift and then your brackets. Curly bracket, Command Shift, left bracket, left.
Okay. All right. I just got leveled up.
Keyboard shortcuts at the bottom.
This was worth the price of admission. So that's this part here. So the first page should display the rates and highlight the best one. So that was just this part, and then also grabbing historical rates as well. So that's what we're going to be building. And you guys already know how to do this. Everything that is in that app here, you guys have already done. It's just, there's a lot of moving pieces here. So the goal is to be able, as developers, is to be able to take a complex problem, break it down into manageable pieces. So that's what we're going to do here. So we'll work through the pseudocode together, and then you guys are going to code, and I recommend working together. And from there, we'll come together and we'll review each step. So in part 1, I kind of broke it down between server side, client side. We're also going to deploy to Heroku. Who has deployed to Heroku before? A couple people. Who knows what Heroku is? A couple more people. Who doesn't know who Heroku is? Okay, all right. Who likes beer? Cheers. All right. So we are going to go over Heroku. So basically, on the server side, set up the project, set up SQLite, then we're going to go over how to make external API calls, and we're going to use requests for that. And so we're going to get the data, we're going to do something with it, put it in the database, and then we want to do that over and over again. So we're going to set up basically a cron job, where we're going to abstract that out with a scheduler. And anyone worked with cron before? Okay. Who's fucked it up? Cron, like that syntax is awful. I have definitely set stuff that should have been ran every single day, somehow runs every single second. And that's not a good thing in some cases. So cron is very easy to screw up. In fact, I'll show you the syntax for it when we get to that point. But we're going to use something, it's called schedule, where you can just pip install schedule, and then it has like the same syntax for it. It's called scheduling for humans, which is the same motto for requests. And requests is what?
Send it through H.
HTTP for humans, something like that. But yeah, there's this whole like for humans slogan going around right now in Python. That's just like easy way to do it, basically. And so we're gonna add that scheduler on there so that way it actually hits the API without us having to do it. So it's gonna just constantly hit the API. We can set it for every second, every hour, whatever you want it to do. From there, we're gonna pop it up to Heroku. On Heroku, we can run that. We don't have to worry about it. I've been running it locally, and so then every time I lose internet, can't actually make the request. So on Heroku, you don't have to worry about it. And then we'll have the client side. Sound good? Cool. Silence is always good. Okay, all right, so let's talk about project setup. What do we need to do for project setup and also SQLite? Make a directory. Get the virtual environment created, activated. What else? What's that? Initialize GitHub. If you are working with, like I suggested, you get init, work with Git. Then you can create a repository on GitHub if that's part of your workflow. Otherwise, after that, yes, pip install Flask. Create a touch app.py. So create an app.py with the boilerplate code in. Get a sanity check, and then add SQLite. So SQLite, you will probably create like a db.py file, pull in SQLite 3, and make a database connection. Cool. All right, 6:49. So let's go till 7 o'clock and come back together. Sound good?
Cool.
Yes, Mr. Herman. Oh man, you guys are so good. I got some stickers, Real Python stickers, GitHub stickers, Gay Rebel Alliance stickers. Somebody just sent these stickers. I'm just like, where did this one come from? So if you're interested in stickers,
Got a Huggy Sharp sticker on here.
that's actually the old DigitalOcean logo. That's that, yeah.
Instead of Roku.
What's that?
Instead of Roku.
Yeah. All right, so step 1 and step 2, project setup, SQLite. How many times have we done this now? 3, 4 times? 4?
I don't think we actually, to be fair, I don't think we technically did that first day. I think that was like, here's a virtual environment or something. So this would be time number 3.
Well, I mean, like, how many times have you set up? Yeah, I mean, you think about it, like, you're setting up the same thing over and over again. Is that fun? Probably you could create a generator to do this for you. Cookie cutter, yes. Yeah, if you haven't used Cookie Cutter before, I highly recommend it. Cookie Cutter is just like a generator of generators, and they have a number of generators already built. So I believe there is a, yeah. So they have a Cookie Cutter Flask, and you can basically install like the same boilerplate over and over again. Sometimes the patterns in there, you like maybe they're not for you, so you can always create your own generator too.
What about your skeleton repository?
Yeah, I use that. It's not really a generator though. That's just a boilerplate that I use. I should probably actually add it to Cookie Cutter, but you can't put in like, there's no way to have like command line prompts with, because you're just like pip install or like just forking it, you know, and cloning it down. So it's like, maybe you want like a prompt for like your database. Maybe you want a prompt for, you know, certain things. So that way you can customize it.
So is there a class template that could be put already?
Yeah, there is. I wouldn't recommend using it for what we're doing right now. It's like full of blueprints and it's full of like a little too much. Full of a little too much. And if you get stuck, go to the repository, click exercises, and then click the Flask Hello World. That has a basic example in there.
How did you choose which version of Flask to install? And is there a way to get it to tell you?
Yeah, you can do equals equals and then the version. Just I would install just the latest one. Just do pip install Flask. That automatically default to the latest one. So here's my data model up there, currency, text, price, real. I'm also doing a timestamp, and that defaults to the current timestamp. So anytime that it is grabbing the data, putting it into the database, I want the timestamp.
Someone doesn't, who's not uber deep in SQL knowledge, is it better to have like a separate database for currency or a different table instead? Or does it not matter?
Per currency, like I would probably just put it in one table, and, just have currency be the field on there. Because you're just gonna have like, you're gonna have rows that's gonna have like currency name, price, and then the timestamp. Yeah, I mean, you could probably, like, if this were for production app, you probably want to have just a table that just has the currencies in there. That would be probably the mini relationship between price and the currency. Probably be like faster that way. Put it all in one. All right.
And see the word by having separate lines.
Yeah, I mean, if you're familiar with SQL, you can have two different tables, and then you'd have just have to have one key there. Right. Just like with MVP, those keys, we're not worried about like normalization after that. Right.
Salt Flask, what else? Anything else in the virtual?
Just pick this up last.
What does the terminology drop mean?
So the drop table, if exists, basically it's looking in that SQLite 3.connect, it's connected to the database. If that table exists,
What's
drop
the
it.
name of the table? Oh,
Yeah.
drop meaning
Delete, like get rid of it.
Okay.
Yeah. So whenever I run this, basically I just want a clean table. And so if you run this without dropping the table, it's going to throw errors.
Would it throw errors, or would it just, if it fit the same structure, would it just like append more stuff to the bottom of it?
I think it'll throw errors.
Okay.
Yeah, especially with the table. It'll throw errors at the table. The table will basically, it'll throw an error probably saying table already exists, something like that. Because you're trying to create a new table.
Okay, yeah, I wouldn't think about creation, I wouldn't think about insert.
Yeah. Where we at? Need more time? Who needs more time? Raise your hand.
Unrelated. Yeah. Are there any resources you would recommend for?
Yeah.
Yeah, mostly, I mean, I just use it to like stream.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're looking, it's just like working at my side.
I guess the other option is to go like.
Yeah. Magnetic Express and that service side. You're looking to just get better at JavaScript. I I would probably say just some basic programming exercises. And some stuff you can just convert JavaScript. But if you're looking to get better, I would say building things. Like I would like find like a project, something you're interested in, so you can get there. And there's I can't really think of there's like like once you have it done to be dangerous, it's you find something. Yeah, feel free to shoot me.
Yeah. I'm working with Skyline.
Yeah. Yeah, it's completely different. I mean, thankfully, like, they're probably using Express or something. Patterns in Express are actually very, very good to Blast. So this is like you have to do the Express way. But it's like nowhere, it's very similar to Blast, it's decorators. And Express is just like functions. There's illustrations. Patterns are very similar to Express.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, more time. Who needs more time? Couple people? Are you good? Oh, don't worry about it. You can see.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Don't worry about this one.
All right, here's what I have. Let's take a look here. So I have an app.py, db.py inside my app. Very basic. I don't even need this route. Inside my DB, pretty basic, just Bitcoin.db, and then have a currency, price, and then a timestamp. Why? Actually, timestamp, yeah. Let's name that date time. Yeah, it's reserved too. What's a non-reserved word for time?
Tiempo.
Now.
Aura.
Now? What?
Tiempo or aura, which is Spanish time, hour.
Aura?
H-O.
H-O-R-A. Aura.
I like that. All right, aura. Feel very zen. I feel like I need my aura. I've connected with it in this class. We're gonna meditate.
So-
Yeah. Super gringos.
So I mean, I can run it like that without not having a proper name like that. I wonder, like, my database.
Oh, I just don't like it as syntax highlighting. It's fine. Like, I can't stand that. It's hard to read for me. It's on a reserve.
No, any of that, I sent the timestamp. Like, we had written before. There's no field there.
Oh, like,
No.
I mean, what the actual
Just like
field
that.
was times to add.
Just that.
So we can give her a timestamp, right?
what did I have before? Timestamp.
Just that.
We just had that, and it just called
Oh,
So give her that.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So going back to our list. wherever the hell that is. Okay, so get the data. Let's get the data from the first Bitcoin exchange, Bitstamp. So if you open this up, this just goes to bitstamp.net. So we have to find the public API. So let's look around and try and find it. Oh shit, API, okay, check that. Public data functions. So since we're going to BTC, BTC is short for Bitcoin, you guys cannot see that. So we can test this actually out in the browser. So this is a GET request. GET requests go through the browser. We can test this out. So if we try this in here, we should get some JSON back. So this is just a live, I don't know how often it's updated, but so let me go back to where I was at. So if you go to bitstamp.com, scroll down to the bottom, click API. These are all the public APIs. You do not have to be registered to get this data. This is freely open data. So we have a URL here, BTC, the USD. So we check it out, and here is the object, or the JSON object we get back. So we get a number of things in here. I'm not all that familiar with Bitcoin, so I don't know the difference between some of these fields like high, last, bid, blah, 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 whatever these are, but I can't remember which field I got. I think it was either bid or ask, but it doesn't matter. If you want to like actually, figure out what these are doing, then you can go in and like research it. But for now, let's just get it into our application. So, yeah.
Why is your JSON so pretty?
Yeah. Mine's all strung
Same
out.
thing.
Oh yeah.
I need your secrets.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. Well, wouldn't you like to know? I have this. I have a plugin. It's like JSON Prettify or something like that. It's for Chrome
Oh, really?
specifically.
Okay.
Yeah. If you try and copy and paste this, it's going to be screwed up though. So you have to turn off the plugin for that. But it's like JSON View, JSON Prettify. If you just Google Chrome and then JSON Prettify, like there's some sort of plugin. Yeah.
But this is automatic, or you did that manually? Every time you receive a JSON, it fixes it for you?
Yeah, every time I receive JSON, it just fixes me. So it's like actually like readable. Okay. All right, so let's grab this URL. Let's do this programmatically. So first off, we're going to pip install requests. So again, requests is a library to make HTTP requests. There is a built-in standard library for making HTTP requests. Anyone know what it is offhand?
URL.
URLlib, and there's, I think, URLlib2 as well. It's not that great. That's why we're using pip install requests. I think it's actually becoming better, but for now, that probably won't be until Python 4. But yeah. Oh man, if we have 2, 3, and 4 going on at the same time, oh man.
So you say the request is better than URL too?
Yeah, I would say too. Yeah.
Yeah, requests pretty much are wrapped around
Yeah.
URL to means you have to do like creating the header yourself and dealing with all the formatting stuff that you were requesting. So you don't have to care.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, probably don't have to deal with that. Yeah, that's why it abstracts it out. All right, so I pip installed requests. Now I can use this. So let's get a quick sanity check. So if we go to requests, let's take a look at what's happening there. Brits. So very, very easy syntax. Request.get. That's all we need to do. And we're assigning to a variable, and then we can do a number of things with it. Since we're getting JSON back, I'm going to go ahead and just use this JSON method, and we're just going to go ahead and print it out. So in code speak, let's go ahead and create a new file. Let's call that data.py. Let's import requests. And var equals requests.get. Paste in that URL. var.json. All you have to do. Literally all you have to do to get that external data in here. And why did I put a semicolon on there? What am I doing here?
That's good.
Man, just coding the wrong
So I'm
language.
gonna back you up really quickly.
Yeah.
You got the URL. Where did you get that from? I know it was on obviously bitstamp.net,
Yeah.
but where?
I scrolled to the very bottom, and then API. Yeah. You could also probably Google Bitstamp API. I'm sorry?
I mean, a bunch of different cyber currencies as well, right?
Yeah.
There was one of the big ones.
Yeah. Like, there's a number of different exchanges, and they all deal with different cryptocurrencies. But yeah, like this is like BTC to USD. You could probably do BTC to Euro. You could probably do a number of different things there. But so now if we run this Python data.py, so there's our JSON right there. That's exactly what we had in the browser. Now we have it. We have it in our code. Now we can programmatically do something with that. So at this point, if we go back to our app, and you can see here, bear with me a second. I know you guys are still copying code, but you see here, what did I say at the beginning? Developers need to simplify things. Should we start working with other cryptocurrencies at this point?
No.
Why?
Because
Keep it simple. Keep it simple.
Yet.
What's that?
Because we haven't got all the way to the end yet.
Yeah, let's do it. The best. Right, whatever. Whatever your answer, yes. US is the best. But yeah, the term is KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Just keep it simple. Don't add something else on there. It just adds complexity. Pretty soon, like you're gonna be having like an array of or a list of dictionaries, and you have to like iterate through that. Just keep it simple. Just have like something very, 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 very simple. Get it onto the client side, and then iterate. Once you have that pattern down, it's so much easier. So we're gonna deal with one currency at this point, and then once you have that done, you have the pattern down, and then you can very easily add other currencies. Okay, so we're gonna add all the currencies right now. Okay, so we're getting the data now. What should we do with this data?
Pull the data out.
Pull it out and get in the database. What do we know about the schema right now?
We don't understand.
What's that? We don't understand why it's the way it is. All right, so we have currency. We have, and that's a text, so that will be what? What is this? Bitstamp? Or actually, we'll have. We have what? We have currency, price, and Aura. This actually should not be a currency. This should be exchange. My bad. My bad. An Aura. Okay. So the exchange will be Bitstamp. The price will be 1256 point blah blah blah, and the aura will be a timestamp. So what does the timestamp look like? So that will be year 2017. 3, 7, and then 17, 7, 19. This will be UTC, so this is not going to be correct, but something like that. So we want to get that data from that, and that's what we're putting into the database. Now, since I jacked up the schema, what should I do?
Run it.
No, we have to create a migration. We have to do migrations. Okay. So since we have no data, we can just run that again. Oops. Actually, I haven't ran that yet, so it doesn't matter. But let's go ahead and run it. Okay. So that created my database. You can see it right over here. Show in Finder. I'm going to open that up. Browse data, exchange, price, Om Shanti, Aura. Okay. All right. So now we have the data. Now we need to get into that right format. What does the data look like right now? It looks like this. So we need to go from that to that. And then we need to get into the database. Let me actually see what I used. I can't remember if I used bid or what I used. Let me just double check. I definitely did not use last. So let me just check. Let me check what I used. I used bid. So not getting the correct data, but I think there was actually like, let's see, last versus bid. What is last? Bid. Okay, so there's a difference there. Significant. Okay. Does everyone know how to go from JSON to a Python dictionary, or from JSON looping through it to add stuff to the database?
It's already a dictionary.
You're right. Yeah, that converts to dictionary. So what do you do at that point? Yeah. Well, like it's already in a dictionary, so now you just like insert it into the database. And if you don't know how to insert in the database, what do you do? Google it, or look at your old code. Yes. Yeah, I'm gonna type this out.
So is this similar to what we did last week where we seeded it?
No, this is, like, you have the row already.
The row exists.
You have the data already. You just need to put it into the insert statement. So you have like insert into, and then like you'll have to basically pull out what you need from that.
So this is inside your data function?
No, just ignore that.
I mean, everything is, sorry, just your data.
Bitcoin has connection. C is gonna insert. So this will be exchange.
So what is this data .py function do? How will it be used? Yeah.
Doesn't matter at this point.
Currently, it's running everything sequentially. So you're not defining any function or anything else, so it's running line by line.
Yeah, really, it doesn't.
What's going to call this? Is this going to be called from db.py or from app.py?
Right now, we can just call it by saying Python data.py. We're gonna get into like how to set up a scheduler, and I'm gonna call it from a scheduler. But at this point, just call it just how you would call. Like you can put if name equals main, put some functions in there.
Do we want to try to use the timestamp from the JSON, or do we want to use the default?
Watch what happens. Test it out. Watch what happens when you put that timestamp in the database and see what it looks like. Yeah.
Currency as a table, insert into table, into currency, and then do that.
Hey, yeah, don't look at this. Are you guys looking at my code? Like, do this on your own. What do you don't look at my stuff's janky up here. Or you can just like Michael Herman is adjective.
How did you,
Were you asking for suck-ups? Is that
sorry, I guess I missed that. How did you get the bottom half of the output exchange?
Right here?
price? Or yes, the
I copied
bottom half.
right here.
Yes, those 3 lines. Where did they come from?
I typed it out by hand. Come up here. Yeah.
Okay, so good.
Yeah. Yeah, right now, like this is like just very like procedural programming. Just going right down the list. We haven't put in any sort of functions. If that like makes you nervous, like just put in a function like get data. Return the data there, and then maybe like add data.
So do we only want to add those three things in the database?
Yeah.
Because it's shaped like. Yeah, that, I don't know. I don't see this thing.
All right, who knows Python really well? All right, so, yeah.
That's why I said.
Have you ever tried to explain if name equals main to a beginner? This is like my explanation of it.
Can't read it.
The explanations on Stack Overflow are very.
So most things have a name. So when you run a module, it has a name. But when you run it as the main program, name is at the main instead of the module. It's part of the package and you import it. If you imported data, when you reference name inside data, you import it, and then name in there, under name is data. So you can use that a lot with the logging module. So if you're using Python logging, you can say logging.getLogger under name, and then data will be prefixed as part of the login entry that gets spit out when you log. But here, this is the way to protect your script. So if it's imported, things don't run. So you say,
Yeah.
if name equals main, if under name equals under main, then run a function, and then you wrap everything in a function. Then that allows your script to be imported without executing.
Yeah, that's similar how JavaScript does modular exports, like public, like a lot of times, like I say, that's like a public type thing, but this is not like public private. This is just like if you literally import that script, what gets ran at that point.
Well, right. Well, if you run it, the name's main. If you import it, it'll be, like, if you imported app.py instead of running app.py, it would be, the name would be app.py. So this doesn't ever execute. Only if it's the main target of Python. So Python app.py, then name equals main. But if you had another script that imported app.py, name in that module would then be app.py. So this would never be true.
So it's code that runs only when it's standalone.
Right, when it's the target of Python. Is the,
If it's imported, this code never runs.
yeah, if it's imported, name is the name of the module.
And this never runs.
Right.
That way you can actually like import the functions of a script without running the code.
Yeah.
Because if you just had this, right, if you had it as you had it there, and you say import data, it would run it. Yeah. Because it executes every line. But if you have a def, that's defining a function. That gets executed and defines the function. But if you had all those steps outside of a function, it'll run every single one.
Is that a nice place to hide test code?
You can. You're better off using test frameworks. There's
Yeah, more often than not, I don't put that in my main, like usually unit tests, I don't do it if name equals main, because I just want the whole thing to run. I don't care. All right, exchange price Aura, so exchange.
Right. Well, then, honestly, what he's doing is all the program tables, so it's going right. So in your case, this is usually it's I don't know, unnamed problem, push that data and take that.
So for So we insert the word bits down for change. The bid for the price. And we enter
Okay, so it's what are we doing last? Is that what you said?
You know, maybe last, yeah.
You didn't ask her.
It's what was used in the last. Should be
Right, that's the current. The lowest point is the last trade.
What is this? Good stamp. Probably not the most Pythonic, but I guess the job done, right? Okay, so let's run that. So what happens when I run this? What is literally going to happen?
Get a JSON, get an API thing from from the website and throw it into a variable, JSONify it into the dictionary,
JSONify it.
and then throw it into our database.
Let's go line by line. So if you guys were like my students in WDI, I would say when I run Python data.py, what happens? So first, go and get data. Go and get data. Inside there, we are using request.get. Get is a method on requests that allows us to make get requests, putting in a URL there, and then yeah, we're returning r.json. JSON is a method that it looks like it returns a dictionary. From there, we are assigning that data to a variable called data. Probably not the best variable name, but we're passing that into add data, another function, and then I am printing blah. Is blah like
very official, very descriptive.
very like official, like we know exactly what's going on there. But I'm printing that just to see what I get. From there, I am using the with context to open a connection to bitcoin.db. I'm assigning that, I'm saying as connection. So that is, what does that do in Python when I say as connection? Like that. I'm using a context alias. Yes, I'm aliasing it as connection. And then I'm opening up the cursor, which I am assigning to a variable called C. I'm using C there because it is what?
Cursor starts with C.
Cursor starts with C. It's a convention. It comes from the docs. I literally copied and pasted from the docs. Somebody's coming from a different language, they're like, oh, C, but that's fine for now. Then I don't think this is the most Pythonic, but whatever, like this gets the job done. So I'm creating a list here, passing in the name of the currency, blah.last is parsing that dictionary, getting in that value last, and then I'm inserting that into the database. So I'm executing a SQL statement, insert into currency is the name of the table. I'm referencing the field exchange price, and then I'm passing in the values that I want. So if you're going to, like, if you are in like interview phase, what you should do is read that over and over and over and over again in front of the mirror. It's your significant other, somebody that doesn't know what's happening there. It's such good practice, because when you are like reading it aloud, you see it in a different light. You see errors in there. You see things that you shouldn't do. You see things very, very, very differently when you actually are reading it aloud. So regardless of whether you are in an interview phase and just want to learn how to talk code to people, or if you're trying to find errors, if you're doing test or pair programming, very good to talk it out. If you're explaining to someone else, like I always recommend to talk it out. So that's literally what is happening in here.
What is I understand what it does, but the .last attribute there,
Yeah,
where is that? I mean, what is that a property of? Where is that from?
that's from the dictionary that is coming back from, when I'm returning r.json, that is the dictionary of the data that's coming back.
So you can,
I can't do that, so I'd have to do like that. Oh yeah, values.
And then you go ahead and timestamp.
You don't have. Why don't you have that timestamp? Yeah. It's default. So let's.
Is there a database called Bitcoin or currency?
I called it. What did I call the database?
You call the database Bitcoin, the table is called currency.
I thought you changed the name of currency.
I mean, you can call it. You can literally call it whatever you want.
What happened to Aura?
So why don't we have to specify Aura? It's got a default.
And what about Exchange?
Exchange is coming right there. Bitstamp. Why can't I use dot notation?
You have an angling
Just,
default there. But it's all dictionary.
It's a key. Yeah, it's a dictionary.
You can dictionary that changes get item to get or into
I like that, how you can't do that. Because in JavaScript, you can use dot notation there, but sometimes that'll break depending on the keys. So if I look at my database, I refresh this, I got data in there. Okay, all right, moving on. So blah is not a good name. What should I call this?
Data dictionary.
Bit data, bit price, something.
Bit.
Data point.
Bit.
Prepare.
I think in computer science, the hardest thing is naming. I just like it's so difficult.
I think you're.
Bit object? Bit dick? All right, whatever.
Kind of like when you have proposed bit typos for the win.
Yeah, typos for the win. Yes. All right, so it's all that code. All right, so we go back to our steps here. All right. Now let's add a little scheduler on here. All right. Who knows cron? Those who know cron, do it in cron.
I know how to look it up in Google.
Yeah. How would you do this? How would you set a cron job for this? Like, how would I schedule this if I wanted to? Like, I want that data.py file to literally run every single hour, let's say. How would I do that?
00 *****.
Is that like literally what is that literally like what I would type in here? 00 star like
Do man cron tab. It'll give you the.
what if I'm on a Windows machine?
Then you're
Windows has a scheduler though. All right, so Daniel Bader has a let's see. Okay, so Dan Bader has a nice little scheduling utility here, which, for those who know cron, like, this is just ridiculous syntax. Just, it's like, ah, oh, so nice. I can read, yeah. I can't mess that one up. There's no excuse at that point. You mess this up.
I don't have to guess what's called.
Yeah,
Right.
This is busy waiting. This is it's not very efficient.
What do you mean it's not very efficient?
You know, while schedule run, okay, time sleep one, and repeat every second. You're gonna hit the
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're doing this right, you put it into a task queue. You use like celery.
You use something like 2 minutes schedule and have some period of time.
Right. But can I teach celery right now?
I wouldn't even tell it.
So this is a very low hanging fruit for scheduling at this point. So let's do a pip install schedule. If anyone wants to do this a different way, go for it. If you can do it in 15 minutes, that's fine. Like this will literally take me probably like 15 minutes to do. I set a daemon process that's running in the background. I don't have to worry about it unless my machine, I spilled beer all over this thing. So let's we're gonna get this thing scheduling so that way it fires that request every hour, puts it into a database, then we're gonna pop on Heroku so we don't have to worry about it. There are multiple ways of doing this. If this were a production app, this would not be obviously the best way, but this is just a low-hanging fruit to get this done. So let's do pip install schedule. One thing I haven't done is a pip freeze my requirements, so I'm going to drop that into there. That just takes my dependencies that are in my virtual environment and pops them into a TXT file. Okay, so super easy syntax here. So if you go to Python schedule, it is the first result. From there, click on the home page.
Yeah.
Somebody log in. Create a new file. Let's call it, what if I called this schedule.py? What would happen? Name collision. Scheduler.py. All right, what is happening here? So I have a while loop that lasts forever. Schedule.run pending is a method on the schedule object that runs all pending jobs, sleeping for how long? 1 second, or whatever that is, and then it's running again. So it's looping, it pauses, loops, pause, and it continues to run that. So we can test this out. How can we test this out? If I want a quick sanity check on this, how do I get a quick sanity check?
Make a main.
I don't know.
Change it a couple seconds and just.
Why would I have to change anything?
All the way to 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah. You're right. Yeah. What was it? Every second? I think something like that. And it's the wrong one. Is that second, every second? Let me double check. All right, so I can't remember what this is in the API. Let's see, developer interface. Kind of looks like it is second. Schedule. every I have to do dot do. That's why it's breaking. Okay, so there it goes. Now it's just running over and over and over again. Okay, so if we want to make that API call over and over again and put it into a database, what do I need to do? So went from data import. What was the function name? Actually, I can just import data at that point, but I'm going to get rid of this here. So let's import get data and data. I want to do this. All right. Let me actually build a function real quick. Function. Yeah. All right, there we go. Data. Okay. All right, so right now it's running over and over again. Let's just test to make sure that this is actually working here. Should be growing each time. So yes, that is working. Okay, so what's that? Is the price going down?
Did Trump tweet something?
That would make it go up. That'd make it go up.
Right, yeah, when he like did Nordstrom, that went up, right? Okay, questions on what's happening here. Very, very, very basic scheduler here. So at this point, we could just sit here and run this over and over again. Is that the best thing to do? Probably not, because if I just threw my laptop against the wall, probably wouldn't run anymore. So let's get this up to Heroku. Questions at this point?
So why is it running test every time?
I just didn't say.
Line 13.
Do test.
That's just the way schedule works. Schedule is like has that .every on there, and then you can specify how often you want stuff run. You can put like a every is like a polymorphic measure or method, meaning that it can take two different things or you can take optional arguments and like do different things. And so every can, if you don't pass anything in there, there's no interval. But if you do pass something in there, there's like an optional argument there you can pass in. .second means obviously run it every second. .do, and then you're running that function.
How did you see the database growing? Was that in this browser?
The database is growing from like the SQLite browser. See, I have 21 rows right now. Like you
Browse data.
just hit refresh, 107. Yeah. every second is probably a little overkill. And with APIs, there can be rate limiting, especially with free APIs. Rate limiting means the amount of requests that you can do every single second. So a lot of sites, or unless some sites will like limit the amount of requests you can make every second to limit DDoS attacks. So a DDoS attack is a distributed denial of service attack. So do you remember last week when S3 went down? A lot, and Heroku went down, and GitHub went down, and like pretty much the firewall of the internet went down. So that was, a lot of that was a DDoS attack like on S3, because S3 has like, kind of like, if it doesn't work, try again. If it doesn't work, try again. So you're constantly hitting with requests. And so it can only handle so much traffic, and that will bring it down. So like if you are China and you want to do a terrorist attack, you probably take all of your traffic and you shoot it at like one site, kind of maybe like GitHub. And then you bring GitHub down, and then, you know, that's X amount of like, you know, dollars there. But so if you're doing web scraping, for example, you want to limit the amount of requests that you're doing per second, or else you can get tracked and then they'll ban your IP.
I read that a general rule of thumb is to do a time and a response time, and then multiply that by 10, make that your delay. So,
But you can bump into specific rate limiting APIs that ask you not to exceed that.
fair enough, yeah.
You can have parametric.
On Bitstamp, they specifically say no more than 600 requests per 10 minutes.
Per IP address.
Per IP address, we're all on the same IP in here, you know. So stop doing what you're doing right now, or else we're gonna get our IP blocked for at least temporarily. And let's change this to every hour. Okay. Questions at this point?
You're gonna publish this stuff?
Publish it. What do you mean?
You're gonna get access to something that works?
Yeah, something that works.
Yes.
We're close to this, right? We are so very, very close. Yeah? All right. Let's get this up to Heroku. All right, let's take a little break. For those who haven't signed up for Heroku, go ahead and sign up for Heroku. Go to Heroku.com. Sign up for it.
Unleash your inner startup. We were all born with one. Have to find it.
That's watch.
I don't know if that was necessary, but just sign up for it. Okay, after you sign up for Heroku, there is a CLI, command line interface, that you want to use. If you have Brew, install with Brew. There is installer, there is like directions here if you don't have Brew. I will Slack.
Inside the personal
It doesn't matter, like Brew install like globally. You want this globally. Why do you want it globally? To use it elsewhere. Like, this is not specific to this project. You want to be able to, like, let's say you go home and you build like this awesome app tonight and you're up all night and, you know, like you want to get on the internet or like on Heroku, like you'll have the CLI there. It's not specific to this project. I don't even think you can actually install this specific to the project. So you can either install with Brew, or there's an OXS installer. There is also a Windows installer here. And then there is Linux or Unix instructions here as well. So go ahead and get that going. Sign up for it, get the CLI going, and then type Heroku. And if you get something like this, then you know it's working.
We need to install, you said Brew for that? Sorry, what did you say?
Brew, like you don't have,
Brew.
if you have Brew, you can do a Brew install like Heroku. If you don't have Homebrew and you're on a Mac, you can download the installer here. Yeah.
When we do it globally, I mean, obviously not in your virtual inbox, but is there some other option to make it global?
So you just have to deactivate first, or
Be a Brew to ask.
No, you want to install this globally. So if you are using Brew, just Brew install. Like you do not want to install this locally. You want and even if you did deactivate or whatever, it's still going to install it
Brew
globally.
ignores all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm following the line you gave me. When Docker works, it works well. When it doesn't work, debugging for like 10 hours. Just been done debugging like just something stupid for like 10 hours. Trying to run like at the ORM, run my migrations. Postgres, it's just it's weird janky error between ORM and Docker where it just doesn't. When I hold the ORM app, it works. It losses like the ORM back in. All the students are using it. Questions? Okay.
But I thought it was the workers. Yeah, that's Right, no, I'm saying, I thought it was, while I was updating, we saw like live.
You refreshed it. It wasn't a live view, you had to refresh it.
But that was in a browser, right? That what we were looking for. What, that was in the app and you was just refreshing?
Yeah.
For the database.
Oh, there's this, yeah, the SQL browser.
Yeah, I got it. I just, for some reason I was thinking that was a web page or a browser that we were watching it live.
No, you just see the. That's it, that's how it is.
On the SQL browser.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry.
What is a SQL browser?
SQL and DB browser for SQL.
Oh.
That way you can actually look at .db.
Weird. That's nice. I was trying to do it in my SQL Word. It's getting such a motion.
Did we say that house or what?
Next door.
Yeah,
Gretchen, you think them doing DSR?
What is, Gil saying?
I like how you automatically think it's okay. Talk to Neil too.
Yeah.
I'm cool with both of them.
Yeah.
No, I saw you walk up to,
They're going crazy.
yeah, I saw you walk up to,
Yeah, those guys.
to the guys, yeah.
It'd be fun, I think.
If I were you, I mean, I don't know your wife's situation, but if it were me, I think it would definitely be fun for at least one term as well. But I mean, it'd be fun to do, but also get to kind of really absorb a lot more.
Exactly.
That's-
You need to explain it to them.
Yeah.
So.
I'm totally agree with that.
I think.
Did you run the solid? I mean, when you have some sort of app or.
This is our capstone.
This, so download that. I assume that downloaded a file.
We need to see bigger detail.
Where did it go?
I think it's like a.
You downloaded, where did it go?
They take it away from you.
That's more like we're not paying for
And but, yes.
It's fine. I think it's, I just don't know. Right, table that we have created. Hey, is anyone able to insert into their database?
No.
Yeah.
Wait,
So you gotta make sure that like the name of it lines up.
Yeah, that's, I'm thinking there's Yeah, I think there might be some of that.
You did?
Yeah. Okay, now, you named this. Okay, so yeah.
Say anything.
Then I didn't get that.
And I'm trusting in your decision. Yeah, I just it worked. Whether it's on or not.
Consensual.
So that's my creation is fine, just insert. Yeah, the creation is fine. So I got here now, yeah, oh, this is dated.
All right. What happens when you type in Heroku?
Does it matter what directory you're in when you install something?
Does this happen when you type in Heroku? Is this what happens? Something similar at least? All right. Anyone not at this point? Still installing. Anyone else not at this point?
I installed, but I'm not getting it.
Would you install this? No, that's just samples.
No, I mean, I'm saying that. Because this is the main cover. I understand the actual output of the good for your JSON. And whatever. You know, different.
Just jump stuff.
And
that's good.
Okay, so I literally have to fit stamp. So that would be the change. Right, I mean, we're hanging in there, I get it. Yeah, trying to glass.
We can't access your server files or
See where it's
native pixels. That's fine, so, but I'm looking at the browser, I should be, I'm looking. Oh, the code.
Yeah, all of that. Was his, were they also round? Yeah, a little bit totally. And she was trying to avoid it. Yeah. That's why I love that. I went to the lesson of the valley.
Everyone else know this?
Nobody
Okay,
thinks
all right.
like
You got a Roku? I think so. It's just, I've never used it. As long as you use it for cameras, it's okay. Yeah. Oh, I guess that's unique. I didn't get the.
Oh yeah. It'll be different on that machine. All right. Heroku works through Git. What is Git? Versioning, version control, yes. So when you do a Git push origin master, generally where does it go if you have it set up with GitHub? It goes to GitHub. If you do, so your workflow is generally Git push origin master, and then you set up a different remote, and a remote goes to an external Git repository. So in the case of, let's say, you do git remote -v. So right here, those are my external repositories right there. These are my remotes. So if you recognize that URL, that goes to the GitHub repo for this class. I can set up a different remote. I can set up a remote pointing to Heroku. So then I can do a git push Roku master, and it takes that and it pushes up to Heroku. So let's do that real quick. think there's like a Heroku Flask thing here. Let's just see what this thing says. I'm ready to start. Okay. This is perfect. All right. Getting started on Heroku with Python. So you're downloading the CLI. I have the CLI installed. Yay. Okay. That's like a sample app. Don't worry about that. Okay. So we get into Heroku Create. So if you run Heroku Create, it does two things. One, it sets up an app on Heroku. Two, it sets up a remote. What's a remote?
Repository.
Nope. A link to a repository. It's a link. It points to a repository. So if you run, go ahead and run Heroku Create wherever you're at. If you're in already a Git repository, you need to move it out of a repository. So that won't, because it has to be an individual repository. I don't know how you have your project set up, but if you're inside a remote or inside a repository already, you need to move it out. And I'm going to do that because that's the case for me. So move, exercises, Flask, Bitcoin example, and I'm going to move it to, I'm going to go add a directory. Perfect. Okay, so if I cd in Flask. Okay, all right. I'm going to deactivate my virtual environment. You guys are all watching me. Does that mean like you have, is your project in a repository?
No.
Yes, I initiated a repository.
But it's in that directory, right?
Yes.
Okay, if you have some sort of like repository and then inside that repository are multiple projects, you do not want to do that. Like you want to have a project, each individual project should have a Git repository.
So you create the repository in that, the directory of the project.
Yes.
So can we back up and do that? Or
How's your project structure right now?
I don't have anything.
Okay, so you're fine then. Go ahead and run a git init. So a git init initializes a new repository.
Inside or outside?
Inside, you want to do this in the root. So wherever you have your env file, who's just out of curiosity, who's not familiar with Git? You guys all are familiar. Okay. Yeah. Who's familiar with Git? Who's not familiar with Git?
Not very.
Okay.
I still break things.
I mean, yeah. I mean.
So deactivating doesn't matter, right?
Okay. All right. So
Where do you want the init to happen?
you want the init to happen in the project root.
Okay.
Project root.
Git.
So here's my project root. So you can see all the files in there. So if I do a tree, so I have my app.py, my bitcoin.db, blah, blah, blah. My repository is in there. It's a dot file. That's why it's not showing up here, but it's in there.
And you put your virtual environment
Yeah.
in that same folder.
Yeah. The workflow I do is, and this is like, if you're doing web development, you should probably do this workflow. Create a project. That's where your environment goes, and that's where your repo goes.
Okay.
Michael?
Yeah.
You mentioned Heroku Create. How does that interact with the Git initiation?
Create the repo first. So do git init, and then do Heroku Create.
You mentioned Git init part first.
So
You're saying it's a back out of that Git directory?
you do not want to be in the Git directory. So I'm in my project root right now.
Yeah.
So now my Git repo is in here. So now you do a Heroku Create.
Okay.
And then you'll be able to access the code from your personal root by Git
repository as well as that. 'Cause when once it goes to Heroku, you can't see the code within there.
Right. I mean, like you can see the code locally and on like GitHub if you want to see it, but I have to delete some repo. If you have over 100 repos, you can't have over 100 repos. So
So why did we have to back out of our current?
I only backed out because like I had to move mine out because mine was inside a repo within a repo.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's why I was like, where he was watching me. So
Use your apps and your random name. That's how we score it.
yeah. I gotta delete some apps.
So we don't have to do Git and Git if we're already there for
If you already are in a repository and that repository is in your root, then you're fine. Where the hell is the dashboard? That's not it. Who's confused? Man,
Good now.
all right, we're good. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to delete one of these apps.
I'm confused where the beers
They're on the 4th floor. You have to converse with a bunch of energy tech people. They're talking about coal. If you're interested. That was how do I get out of here? How do I get a beer and strategically get out of here without like talking too much about coal?
Right. Clean coal, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, so clean. It's so clean. Yeah. What's that? Energy tech. Yeah, it's a meetup group. Yeah, you'd be interested in that. You're a coal man. I'm kidding. Yeah. Okay. All right. So Roku creates a new app that also sets a unique URL for it. So in this case, my app is secureriver.43648.herokuapp.com. One thing you can do is you can specify a name here if you want. It has to be unique. You can go back and change that if you want. I can show you how to do that. Just go ahead and just do this right now. So this created a new app. Now, if I do git remote -v, so now my remote is pointing to Heroku right now. So I do not have this particular app on GitHub right now, so it only has one remote. And you can see that it's pointing to git.herokuapp.com. So that is pointing to Heroku. Now, normal Git workflow, let's do a git add. Actually, let's do a git status. What do I have in here? PyCache. I got my env file. So,
Really quick.
yeah.
I just have my Git repository for any of the parent directories. So it didn't create a .git when I did my Heroku create.
Now you have to do git init.
Okay, you do have to do Git. Okay.
Yeah.
And then it can then a record create,
Yes.
then get out, or get remote.
Don't do a git add yet. We're going to talk about git ignore. What does the git ignore do? Anyone know?
Allows you to specify either files, file types, or even directories to not upload.
Yes. There are certain files you do not want to put up to git. Binaries. There are basically 3 main groups of files. 1, dependencies. You do not want to push your dependencies up. Why? Why do I not want to push my env file up?
Redundancy.
Because those are local.
Those are local. And also, I have a pip freeze, requirements.txt. Inside my requirements.txt, I have all my dependencies, I have my versions.
So if you want to go and use that, all you have to do is fork it or clone it, then clone it down, and then do a pip install. And then it just goes right to my requirements.txt and downloads those. If you're pushing up your env file, what happens then if like you want new dependencies? So it creates problems. You do not need to store that. Like that comes from pip. It comes from pip for a reason. So we do a pip freeze. And all right, don't watch what I'm doing right now. Everyone look at that direction. So I'm gonna activate my environment now. So now I can do a pip install -r requirements.txt. What is that gonna do?
It's gonna go through everything on the code's frozen.
No, this is actually going to install all my requirements from the requirements.txt file.
Yeah, sometimes it can go through, all the stuff that you throw.
Yeah. So this is downloading all my dependencies from the requirements.txt file. So now I have them locally. So when you push stuff up to GitHub and you want someone else to work on your project, you want to fork or clone that, or fork and then clone it down, or just clone it down and then do a pip install -r requirements.txt. Okay, so dependencies. Number 2 are system files. For Mac, that would be like DSStore. For Windows, that'll be like Windows XP. Okay. What else? I don't know what else like system files like you would put in there. I do DSStore. I also do like .pyc, like the Python compiled files, or like PyCache files.
Like NetBeans or Eclipse.
Yeah, anything to do with like your editor and stuff like that. Probably generally want to put in there.
Them temporary files.
Yeah.
Yeah, start a TMP or any dot file for that matter.
Yeah, pretty much any dot file. Number 3 are like API keys, right? Or like passwords. You start putting those things on GitHub, you're asking for trouble. There is a banking site, I think it's plaid.io, where you basically interact with your bank with an API. You only have read access. But you start putting those keys on GitHub, you're in trouble, because anybody can access that. So any sort of private keys, anything that has a security risk to it, you want to put onto GitHub or onto your Gitignore. You do not want that on GitHub. So how should I word this?
Sensitive.
Sensitive.
Sensitive, yes. Sensitive things. Passwords. Auth keys, that sort of thing. So you register for an API, you get an auth token. You can make requests with that. Do I want Chris making a request with that? No. I do not trust Chris, so I will not give him my auth token. Like there are like just certain things you do not want to put up there. Thankfully, like sites do a lot of scraping. So back a couple of years ago when I was teaching, this guy like registered for Plaid, and I think it's Plaid, but whatever, it's the banking API thing. He put his key up on GitHub. They automatically scraped GitHub, and they found out like within 10 minutes, and they like basically revoked the key. Because it's like certain things you cannot like have out there in the wild. Certain things like you have to, just has to be secure, especially banking. Even though it's read access, you probably can't like, make transactions and whatnot with the bank account, even like read access. Like, I don't know. I don't want someone to access my bank account. There's some weird stuff on there. Not too weird. Weird though. Okay. All right. So.
One thing I would add to that, just general, is each binary file, any kind.
Yeah.
So in this case, our database file, we would want.
Yeah, I was thinking about cache files too.
The DB file is interesting in this case. I would agree in 9 times out of 10. In this case, like since we're using a database that is stored as a file, I want that up there because I've already grabbed some data from it.
but normally I would agree in this case. What you can do is you can add it in there, and then you just have to recreate it. There is certain data in there that I want though to be up there. This is not like by any means a production app. This is, you would not be using SQLite probably in a production app anyway. So yeah, that is a good point though.
You do that in my environment, you don't
Yeah. So
get it does not handle binaries at all.
so yeah, to each of their own on that. I'm going to go ahead and keep it. That's true. I don't know if that's going to work.
Well, so it will work. The problem is that Git tries to only keep track of actual changes, but because binary files are inherently just always changing the entire time,
Yeah.
it's storing the entire file every single
Oh
time.
yeah, you're right.
So it's and it can't keep track of changes out there.
Yeah.
So it's just a waste of space on your own repository.
Yeah, because it's keeping track of all that stuff. Yeah, I have used Excel like and tried to start like diffing that, and like if you look at the XLSX file, oh, it's a nightmare in there.
They changed to some fancy XML and waited.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to create a gitignore file, and I'm going to put these 3 things in there. So my gitignore file here. So first one, dependencies. So I'm going to put my env. A lot of times it's going to be VNV. It could be a number of different like things. There are, if you go to like Google and search like GitHub .gitignore Python, it'll like show you a number of like recommended things to put in there. Let's actually look at that. Python dot .gitignore. If you just Google that, there probably will be like, yeah, this first one here. I'm going to click raw. I'm going to go ahead and copy that and just paste it in there. So we have the compiled files, any sort of packaging type stuff, installer logs, Scrappy's in there, interesting. .env, okay. Now, at this point, if I do a git status, let's see what's actually going to get added there. This is the stuff that is, if I do a git add -a, so basically git add everything, which we do not want to do in production environment, but it's not production. So you can see the Bitcoin activity. No, in most cases, I would not add that. I'm going to go ahead and add that because I want to have access to that data up in the cloud, and I do not want to show you guys how to actually do like a CSV dump or a SQL dump at this point for the sake of time. So does that make sense on why I'm adding the DB file? Otherwise, I would have to do a SQL. Otherwise, I'd have to recreate that file up in the cloud. I would have to like dump it as a CSV and then do import, or I'd have to dump it as a SQLite file, or just a SQL file. Make sense?
For those who have extraordinarily large amount of time, you really want to store binaries in Git. GitHub has made something called a Git LFS that is able to properly handle binaries. Artifactory has it, Bitbucket has it, GitHub has it. And GitLab has it.
GitLab, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do a git add -a. This is basically, this adds everything that is has been changed. So the way Git works is, most people know what Git is, right? I'm not going to go.
Track changes.
It just, yeah. So it goes through your files, finds what's different, and then like caches that basically. All right, so I'm gonna do a git commit. For my initial commit, I'm just gonna say init. So I added
I basically added things that goes to a staging area, and a staging area is not actually inside my repo yet. So I have to do a git commit. So a git commit will take what's in staging and it'll put it into my repo. So now I can do a git push Heroku master. So that takes, this will take everything that is in my repo, pushes up to Heroku, and then we'll do something with it. What does it do? Well, I know you guys may not know, but we're gonna find out.
Oh, I was gonna say you could do those.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Or you say you do a CSV dump in production? As opposed to other you
You would need to do a number. If this were a production app, you would need to do like 30 different things at this point. Like, we could do another course on that if you wanted to. I took a look at like React, and I was like setting up a development environment with React. You have about 40 to 45 different decisions you have to make. It's just setting up React. You add Redux on there, which does state management, pushes up to 60. That's client side. That's one aspect of client side. You start looking at server side. You start looking at where you're deploying, and you have like 1,000 different options of what you can do. And so that's like what contributes to the fatigue of everything that's happening here. So yeah, for a production app, you would not want to follow this process at all.
So, all right, so do not get ignore the database.
What's that?
Don't get ignore the database.
Don't get, I would not get ignore the database because
Your
It's
Yeah.
wrong.
yeah, this,
Yes, mine didn't work, the git push.
everything should fail at this point, and that's fine.
The
Like
command line was git push Heroku master.
get push Heroku master. You can see what happens here. So literally, if you go through here, basically a Python app was detected. If you keep going through the stack trace, it says your application is missing a proc file. This tells Heroku to run your application. It goes through. It defaults. You see the Python runtime? Defaults to 2.7.13. That's a problem. Like, we need to be able to change that. I think probably actually most of our code is probably compatible with Python 2 at this point, so it probably doesn't matter too much. We're installing the requirements. We're going through, and we go down here, and it basically says deploy to Heroku. Now, if I do a Heroku open, basically that will target your, actually, I'm not going to do Heroku open, just copy the URL. So copy the URL. Let's see if it actually works. So again, application error. So something is wrong there. There's a number of different things wrong with this application right now and why it won't run. The most basic one is that it doesn't know how to run our app at this point. Have we told Heroku to run Python app.py? Because that's where our Flask app is at. We haven't told Heroku to do that. So Heroku doesn't know what to do at this point. All we did was pushed up our code, and Heroku, like, it wants to try really, 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 really hard to try and figure out how to actually run our app so that it works. Right now, it's not working. So at this point, if you were doing this by yourself, you would go back to the docs. You can look at the error here. You are missing a proc file. Huh. What's a proc file? Huh. Man, maybe that.
That's a great teacher you are, you're gonna tell us.
Maybe that is an indication. Maybe this teacher isn't so great, and he like decides to like, what the hell is a proc file? Maybe I'll. What's that? This tells you Heroku how to run your application. So if you had no idea what a proc file was, what would you do? Whoa, man, this is really easy. It tells me exactly what to do right there.
What if you like didn't know at that point?
Call you.
Google, call me, right?
Roku at us are making
You gotta stop calling me like 2 a.m. It's getting really annoying. All right, so let's go ahead and create a proc file, and based on these instructions, this tells Heroku how to run our application. How do we run our application at this point? Like our Flask app. Remember, we created one of those. Python app.py. Let's test that out locally. You can see it's running on localhost 5000, so it looks like it's working. So, proc file, huh? All right. Well, let's just do a brute force method. And what if I did Python app.py there? Well, if you did that, it wouldn't work. There's one other thing that you have to do to get this to work. You actually have to specify web here. But since we have this here, let's just go ahead and Google, or let's just go ahead and check out. What the hell is a proc file? Proc file is a mechanism for declaring what commands are run by your application's dynos on the Heroku platform. A dyno is is basically a container. It's basically like, it's how they do their pricing scheme. If you're familiar with DigitalOcean, it is, and it's escaped me right now, it's kind of like an EC2 instance. What is it on DigitalOcean?
Droplet?
It's similar to a Droplet. It's just basically how they do their pricing scheme. But okay, so proc file. Proc file is a file named proc file. It should be named proc file exactly, not anything else. Man, that's so explicit. For example, procfile.txt is not valid. I wish it would list like all the things that can't be named at this point. Man, so explicit. All right, so as an example, a Rails application might have the following process types. So we see here, for example, if web is a process, then this is dyno started the kind of blah, blah, blah. It's a web server. So we're running a web server. Another thing, if you're running this production, you do not want to run the Flask development web server in production. You want to use gUnicorn or something else. This is a development web server. It should not be used in production. So you would want to actually run gUnicorn at this case. If you're running gUnicorn, you'd have to pip install it, and you'd have to say something like gUnicorn, like app, something like that. But we're not doing production deployments here. So who cares? Let's just run Python app.py. So Flask has a server built into it. It is a development server. We are running the development server upon Heroku. Do not do this in production. This is not a good practice for doing in production. Use a production grade server. Use something that will connect Python to the server. gUnicorn is that. gUnicorn is actually the server. WSGI is the connection, but run actually a production server here. Yeah? Okay. I feel like every single time like I run a class, I always say that, and then somebody deploys something to production and they lose like X amount of money, and somehow it's my fault. So do not run this in production like this. This is not a good practice. Okay. You have more things to think about. Yeah, hire a DevOps person. Worry about your app. Okay, all right, so Python app.py. So, all right, let's try this. Since I am using Z Shell, this automatically tells me a change has been made, this little thing here. So I know, like, my commit history is out of sync. So if I do git status, oh, look, I added a proc file. So let's go ahead and add the proc file. Let's go ahead and commit, added proc file, not commit for prod git push Heroku master. See what happens this time. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Python app detected. Pip install our requirements.txt. At least we didn't get that warning about the proc file. Okay, all right. Did it work this time? Go away. What's the shortcut for the back? Okay, there it goes. Okay, so we are still getting errors. You debug this by looking at Heroku logs. So if you look at the Heroku logs, you can run Heroku logs like this, or you can run it with a flag of tail. Tail is live. So if you're pushing your app up, you can run Heroku logs tail in another tab, and you will see live what's happening. If you run just Heroku logs, there's all the logs. And you can see here, Heroku logs is sometimes like, it's difficult to debug, but like, take a look here. How do I get this to go away? All right, let's just do that. It says no web processes running. Let's just try Heroku restart. So Heroku restart, actually, let me show you something. So if you do Heroku help, this will tell you everything that is associated with the CLI. And you can see in here, actually Heroku help isn't there. I guess it doesn't tell you everything, but, or Heroku restart. So Heroku restart actually restarts the app. So a lot of times I'll just test that out to see if anything changes there. So it doesn't change. So if we look at Heroku logs now, we can see here that it says no web processes running. What do we do at that point? We can Google. Let's see what happens here. That actually should have worked. Huh. Is anyone else like app working at this point? Are we still getting this error?
Do you have to scale?
I don't think so at this point. Let me actually try. You know, you might have to scale because when you first launch it, it doesn't work. Let me try that real quick.
Yeah, they're making it look like that. I need to do, ensure that at least one instance of the app is running. They have you do a PS scale of equals.
Yeah, usually it defaults to 1, but I think if there might be if there's an error, then it looks like it's actually working now. Let's see if it works. It's definitely trying. Ah, I know why. Okay. One thing that we forgot. You'll notice, what port does Flask default to?
5,000.
5,000.
That's a problem. So on Heroku, Heroku does not want to expose ports to the entire world to connect to. So you have to specify command. Do you guys know what command line variables are? Or like not in command line variables, but environment variables. So environment variables are variables that are at the environment level. So Heroku exposes a port, a random port. We have to grab onto that. It's not going to be 5,000 because that would just be too easy to guess. And Heroku only gives you, I think, 30 seconds to bind to that before it just completely shuts it down. So there is a command line variable for that. So let's see, how do we, so Heroku help. Let's see if it says it on here. Version update, stack. Okay, all right. Let me just Google it real quick. Heroku command line or environment variables. Yeah, that's it. Heroku config. So Heroku config, that should actually specify the configuration variables. Why didn't that actually have a port there? Okay. So this is the syntax to set a command line variable. So let's say like, let's say I have an API key, for example. I would say Heroku config set, and maybe it's like, maybe I have a GitHub key or something like that. So I say GitHub, and then it looks like there's a space there, test. Must be in foobar, okay. Okay, so that set a command line variable. The variable name is environment. The value is test. If I wanted to take a look at that, I could run Heroku config, and you can see, or I keep saying command line variable, but I mean environment variable. So that sets that environment variable there. All right, so with Heroku, Flask, port. Let's see what comes up here. There is a environment variable you want to connect to. Okay, there it is. OS environment port or 5,000. So the way that syntax works is this will try and bind to an environment variable called port. If it doesn't exist, then it uses 5,000. So 5,000 is what you want to use locally. So you don't have to set that environment variable locally. So this will just default to 5,000. So let's just take a look at the syntax here. So port, okay. So if you copy this, and I'll select this out. If you copy this, and I copied too much. I don't know how that happens. All right. Okay, so now, here we go. So now I'm specifying the port. So the port is going to default. Was that? Right. I do need to import OS, but right now, so this is going to grab the port from our environment, or it's like if that doesn't exist, this is kind of like an if statement. If false, go to 5,000. Does it make sense what's happening there? Why do you do this?
It sounds like you're saying it does the opposite. Like Heroku, so you're saying that Heroku will default to 5,000.
No, Heroku will give us a port. We need to grab onto that port. Yeah.
So this does it only.
This does, if that port has been set, or like if I set that, then yeah, it'll, what is it set? I can't remember, like source. Oh yeah, export. So like, so yeah, if I say export
port equals like 8,000, that'll put that port in that environment. Like that'll be in my environment now. So now when this runs, so if I say Python app.py, and that broke because I have a syntax error here. What? Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay, so now if I try this, you can see it's binding the port 5,000 or 8,000 now. I can change this. So if I set the port to 8080, and now I run it. Now it's on port 8080. So it's binding to that environment variable. Does that make sense? Okay, so now on Heroku, this should now work. Fingers crossed. I haven't pushed Heroku in a while, so we'll see. So get status. What do I want to do now to get this up to status? Git add, git commit. Let's use the same commit message and git push Heroku master. See what happens this time. Okay, so now if I try that, let's see where we're at now. It's definitely trying. So you can see here that error that I was talking about, I thought it was 30 seconds. That's 60 seconds. So it failed to bind to the port. We keep going down. So this is running on, you can see the port here, 5347. Still spinning over here. I'm not getting any more errors. State change from starting to up. Okay, so at least tried that time. So app crashed. Error, okay, let's see here. That's not a very good error there. Okay, so we got this error here. Web process failed to bind a port within 60 seconds of loss.
Maybe the Roku restart thing, because the Git pushed.
Yeah, let me try that. So now on Heroku logs, let's see, that was from before. Let's try and refresh now. When you're on the free tier of the app, it like just goes slow, or the free tier, like it just goes slow like this. So they want you to upgrade.
$7 a month.
Yeah, it's pretty cheap. If you think about it, think about like does anyone remember the lamp stack? Anyone ever work with that? Yeah.
Refugee.
This process is like so much easier to get like a web app up.
You talking about on Heroku?
On Heroku?
Yeah, lamp stack on Heroku?
Oh no, just like lamp stack in general.
I run.
Let's see. I'm still getting an error there.
Django and last one was a lot harder. The whiskey Apache config.
Yeah, there's a lot more to this.
Running like 3, 4 lamp stacks. And one day like Nginx.
So yeah, so they give you a nice like error code here.
So if we Google this, let's just see what it says. Yeah, I think this area code is like some generic area code. I don't think that I'm binding to that correctly still. Let's see here. Okay, this defaults to localhost. So I think you have to specify the host as that. Ugh. Where's that at?
You know, I'm saying here to set host equals 0, 0.
Yeah.
And the app mode is not.
I'm just gonna get that out of there.
No, it's still, there's nothing in
I'm just gonna specify it up here. Oh, and also debug mode. You want to have debug mode off in production apps. Do not want like the stack trace to appear like in the browser. Okay, so again, git add, git commits, git push, Roku master. Let's see what happens this time. You got the same thing, like proc file? Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, my commit messages get interesting as time goes on. Roku Open will actually just open up the app like in the default browser. All right, we got it. Yeah. Yeah, so that's the final. So it's not default, like it's going to default to localhost, which is 127.0.0.1. And so we had to specify the host in there as well. So basically changing that there. Sorry, I got two of these up. All right, so at this point, what time is it? 9:01. Can I keep going? Yeah, yeah. All right, I'm gonna keep going. All right. So right now I'm running the app. What do I want to be running to get the data? I'm going to show you a little hack where you can run the app and the data at the same time. Now, so we have a proc file in here, which basically a proc file you should be running one process per dyno. There is a hack to it. I'm going to run a shell script instead. That shell script is going to then run my app along with my data.py. So I'm going to say shell build.sh. So this is going to run that shell script. If this works out, I don't know if Heroku will let you do this anymore. This used to be a way around it to run two different processes at the same time, because we want to run our app. We also want to run that data.py because that's what's collecting our data. So we need two things running at once. If you did not do it this way, you would have to have two dynos. You have to have two separate apps. You would have to be running, and this is, if this were a production app, yes, you would want to do this, where you'd run your web in one process, and you'd probably run the other part in a different process where you're actually grabbing the data. And you'd have to connect the databases together. In this case, I'm just going to run a shell script, and then inside that shell script, I'm going to run my commands. So I have my app.py. So I'm just going to basically create a new file. I'm going to call this build.sh. Inside my build.sh, now actually I don't know if I can run Python app.py I can't run that as a daemon because I have to run that as a daemon and I have to run my other. You guys know what a daemon is? Am I pronouncing that right? Daemon? What is it? What is a daemon? Yeah, it's just a process, background process that you run all the time. You want it to run all the time because you want that data.py file to be continuing to collect data. So you just run that in the back. You just run that in the back. Who cares about it? So I'm just going to go ahead and set this as, since we don't care about our hello world at this point, all we care about is the collection of data. So let's do Python, what was it? Data.py. This should just be collecting our data at this point. Yeah. Yes. So this will actually, this is running the scheduler, which the scheduler then runs our data collection. So git add, git commit, updated rock file.
We want to run our app here as well.
I'm not going to run it right now. I don't know if I can run it as a daemon like I want to. So I'm just going to run, for the sake of time, I just want to start collecting data. I just wanted the data collection to be happening in the back end. Because next time, we're going to have a crap load of data in there. Fingers crossed. So that way our actual chart is like a little bit more unique than what I have up here right now. Here's how many data points I have now. So I have 104 data points. So, whoa, price dropped. Time to buy.
All right, so, question.
Yeah.
So your if it's updated and you know, the files committed and submitted into the repo, are you gonna have to pull? I mean, if the files are changing in Heroku, it's not, is it doing a commit?
It's
How
handling.
do you get that data back? And if you do re-push and you push on the same file again, you're gonna overwrite it.
You want to handle that stuff in a different way. Like Heroku works.
So you're saying that you're gonna let this run and collect data, but you're gonna wipe the file the next time you push it.
It's not going to wipe the file if you are still working with Git. But there is going to be a sync there. You're right. There is going to be an issue with our local file and with our file on Git with DB. There is a way to sync that up there. We'll go over that next time. But if you did use your git ignore to git ignore the DB, then you have to create the DB on Heroku. So you have to be able, it's like, you have to run a bash command. It's like Heroku run Python. So you would want to run db.py. In this case, I'm going to run data.py. I don't know, it's going to give me like the full output here. But that ran my data.py file. But if you want to create a database on Heroku, you can just run Heroku run db.py. So if you put your database in your git ignore, you want to create that database on Heroku. Yeah. Because, yeah, you think about what's in that script, it's just going to drop it, yeah.
So what's the utility? What point is
So why are you leaving it run?
What's that?
Why are you leaving it run?
Why am I leaving what running?
When you say you're gonna let your data collection run,
Yeah.
populate the database, but if you re-execute your data PY, it's gonna wipe it.
Right. So what I'm going to do then is, instead of like, you wouldn't want to do another push. You would want to remove, you would want to add then your db.py or your your db, or not your db, your bitcoin.db to your gitignore and get it out of gitignore at that point. The reason why I didn't do that to begin with is I wanted the data I already collected up there. And instead of doing like a SQL dump, I just pushed it up there as a shortcut just for the sake of time. I mean, if you want me to show you how to do that, I can show you how to do that. You can, yeah, you can do that workflow as well.
Then that file would be lost. It wouldn't be connected to your Git status or log.
All right, let's just do that. Do you want me to clear the database? Like like if we do touch, actually, if I just go to my gitignore, and I put up here star.db, or actually star.db, and then I rm-rf. So rm-rf, and then the name of the file, so bitcoin.db. So now my bitcoin.db is gone. So now I don't have to worry about it being in my Git history. So now I do git status, git add -a, git commit, removed.db, git push Roku master. So then on Heroku at this point, you would need to create the database. So you'd need to run the command to create the database. So Heroku run Python db.py. So now if I do Heroku run ls, I don't know if that's going to actually show me the output. Where's my DB? Heroku run python.db. All right, let's test it out. So if I run Heroku, and what is collecting my data? So that would be Python data.py. Let's see if that works without an error. And then Heroku logs. Let's see if that's actually, did I put like a print statement in there? Okay. Maybe it's not showing that because it's technically hidden. Does ls-a show hidden files?
Yeah.
Oh, -a is like a flag for Heroku. Yeah, good call. Damn it.
Let me do that. Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, I ran. Did I not run dp.py?
You did.
I thought I did. Okay.
And the logs did a good update, huh? The last 4 minutes.
Yeah. I'm gonna connect to my database real quick and see what's in there. That's really annoying. Okay, with SQLite.connect, Bitcoin.db, select all from what I call it currency.
Two A's. For 2 hours.
Value. Okay. Import SQLite.
Yeah, no. No default language.
I think I have it running.
Michael, did you do the
I
second
think I
round?
have the schedule running in the background. Let that run. But I can't verify. that.
I can't remember at this
I
point.
think they were both doing that analysis. GPS 2,
Oh yeah.
Well, I have all on that, so show,
Oh. Is there a way to just tell Rosa
running that, but I'm not-
Yeah, you can change the runtime. Um,
10 seconds.
it would probably throw it would be throwing a syntax error. There would be an error in there if it was actually
How did
a
you background?
Python 3.
You didn't background update.
No. I updated the proc file to run. I did. Hey, I'll be out in a second.
That the bus driver, making sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish the bus driver cared about my well-being. Instead, he just cares about the bus being on time. So if I go to test, Roku logs.
Not in your getting more. Not in your getting more.
There's no data in there right now. So it's not going to actually get any data out of there.
The question doesn't exist.
All right. Obviously, Heroku is a little too much for this. So I'll get Heroku working. But yeah, Heroku, I guess, is like.
This is just an experiment to see if pushing the database.
What's that?
This is just a test to see what would happen if you don't give it the database.
Yeah, it's like not actually creating my database right now.
It's not great.
I suspect the database is wrong because we have even if we have a DB file because
Oh, really?
it's not created. So
Oops.
So, I mean,
so he's actually running the DB.py, which should be creating the database file. Database file previously exists.
yeah, so I mean, I'm curious about the Roku run command. I mean, like Roku nominally is built to just run your app.
I've got it working.
It's a web app.
It's updating the database in the background in the web app.
Nice.
Print statements, yeah, with the shell script. So shell script, execute my updater in the background, and then run the app UI foreground. And then the print statements are going to the logs
Is it updating the database?
every 10 seconds.
Did you?
I have a DB show command built in, but you know, if you wipe it, it's going to be Yeah, so if I do maybe show.
How did you create the database?
Seen a couple weeks. Well, I had the database as
Yeah.
part of that commit, which is why I was saying that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
we were getting around The database being there, and if we push it again, it's gonna wipe it.
Try changing it.
It's not- Well, you know what, it's not a thing. That database was part of the commit.
You could try changing it to like, if you quickly change it to in memory. So this syntax here, that'll put it in memory. You try doing that real quick to see if it works.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, her homework, get this working. All right.
Yeah.